rounding numbers. Okay, so we're going to be talking about rounding numbers. That's not to do with the shape, it's not making them round or circular, but it's rounding numbers up to another number. We could be talking about rounding numbers to the nearest 10 or to the nearest whole number, to the nearest 100. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So what I'm actually talking about when I'm rounding a number is I'm not wanting so much detail. I just want to know what that number is close to, what it's approximate to, what it's like. So if I was rounding a number to the nearest 10, let's imagine I had the number 37. Okay, so I've got myself a number line, so I know that I've got 0 there, and if I was rounding to the nearest 10, I might think where are the tens numbers. So I've got 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and I could carry on my number line. And I've got the number 37, and I want to say, well, where does that 37 fit? If really the only amount of detail I need is if it's 0, 10, 20, 30 or 40. So 37 I know has got to come in here in between the 30s and the 40s. So where does that come exactly? Well, 37 is going to come up here. Okay, and I can see just by looking at my number line that that is closer to 40. So if I had the number 37, I'd say, well, that's closer to 40 than it is to 30. In fact, I can see this. I can look at the numbers exactly. From 37 to get up to 40, I've just got to add on 3. So I've just got 3 there. Whereas if I was to go from 30 to 37, I've got to count on 7. So I can see that it's closer to 40. So rounding 37 to the nearest 10 would be 40. Now let's look at the number 12. 12 would come on my number line about here. And so I can see that 12 is closer to 10 than it is to 20. And in fact, 12 is only 2 away from 10, and it is 8 away from 20. So 12 would actually, in this case, round down to 10. So when I had 37, it actually became bigger. It rounded up. It went to 40. 12, because that was closer to the lower 10 number, that rounded down to 10. Now let's see what we have if we had the number 25. So 25 would come right in the middle here on my number line, between the numbers 20 and 30. So it's right in the middle. If I look at how many numbers that's away from 20, well, that's 20 to 25 is 5, and in fact 25 to 30 is also 5. So it's right in the middle. So do I say it's closer to 20 or do I say it's closer to 30? Well, the rule that we use in mathematics, if we're on the 5, we always round up. So think of a high 5. The 5 goes high, the 5 rounds up. So 25 would in fact round to 30. Now let's look at some examples where we're rounding to the nearest 100. So if I'm rounding to the nearest 100, I don't want very much detail at all. I'm looking at numbers that are either 0 or 100 or 200, 300 or 400. So let's imagine I had my first number. Okay, so I've got the number 190. I need to round that to the nearest 100. So the digits that's in the hundreds column is the 1, so I know that I'm in the 100s bit. I'm within this section on my number line. In fact, if I was to place that number on the number line, 190 would be about here. I am 90 away from the 100. I've got 90 more than 100, and I'm only 10 away from 200. So my instinct is telling me that I should be rounding this number to the 200 because it looks very close to 200. It looks a lot further away to 100. So my instinct is saying 200. Looking at the numbers, I know that I've got a number that's more than 100 because of this one here. Then I look at the next digit, the 9, the 90. Now I don't need that amount of detail, but I look at that 9. That 9 is higher than 5. Remember in the last section where we saw that if it was 5, it rounded up high. So 9 is higher than 5, so it's going to round up. So instead of having 100, I'm going to say that's going to round up to 200. So 190 does become 200. Now let's look at the number 318. What would that round to if I'm rounding it to the nearest 100? So my hundreds column is the 3 here, so I know that I've got 3 hundreds and a bit more. So on my number line I've got 300. It's going to be in here. It's in between 300 and 400. In fact, it's going to come about there. 318 is going to be roughly there on my number line. So as soon as I've placed it on the number line, I can see that it's closer to 300 and it's further away to 400. Numbers aren't quite as easy for me to calculate in my head as to exactly how far away, but I can see that it's looking closer. But the numbers that are important to me, I can see that I've got 300s. The next important number is this 1 here. Now 1 is a very small number. I've only got 110, and that 1 is a lot lower than 5. So it's actually going to be closer to staying down to that 300. So I can't round my number up. It's going to stay down at 300. Even though the 8 is a high digit, that's only in the units, and I'm dealing with hundreds here, so the units are very, very small. So 318, it's going to round down to the 300 because that 110 isn't strong enough to push it up to 400. So 318 would become 300. We'll do one final example. If I had the number, if I just had the number 6, what would that round to? Well, 6 on this number line is going to be really, really close to the 0 there. 6 is tiny compared to rounding to the nearest 100. So 6, I haven't got any hundreds and I haven't got any tens. Looking at my number line, I can see that 6 is closer to 0 than it is to 100. If I was to, 6 is the same as 006. I've got no hundreds, I've got no tens, I've just got 6 tiny little units. So the fact that that 0 is a 0 means that I'm starting down here. Then I've got no tens, so I haven't got any tens that are strong enough to push it up to 100. If that tens digit was 5 or above, then I would be looking in this section up here and I would be rounding up to 100, but because I'm down here, it's got to go down to 0. So just the number 6 rounded to the nearest 100 would actually become 0. So, the golden rules that we need to remember when we're rounding numbers. If you're rounding to 10, your answer will end up as a tens number: 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 120, 180. You'll end up with a number like that. If the unit's number is less than 5, then you round down. And if the unit's number is 5 or more, then you round up. Rounding to decimal places and rounding to significant figures are covered in separate videos.